Thank you, Catch Welfare, and Michelle for inviting me to speak, and thank you, Christine, for letting me to take some of the time from her presentation. I'm Huw Thomas. I'm the Executive Director at the Global Dialogue on Seafood Traceability. We're set up to really create a standard and framework for digital interoperable traceability. And really, the whole vision is that currently seafood traceability and data exchange is historic. It often arrives late. It's not available to the stakeholders that it should be. And so by having digital interoperable traceability, the data should be available in near real time to people to make the decisions to warrant and underwrite their policy commitments, and really to help provide the data that people need in a fashion and a consistent manner that's available to everybody. And I've heard throughout the last 2 days, that data interoperability and accessibility is a challenge. GDST was set up in 2017 by the World Wildlife Fund and the Institute of Food Technologists, using the same approach as was developed the ASC and the MSC standards. Today, we're a partnership organisation domiciled here in the Netherlands. We've got 118 partners, we've got 4 certification schemes as partners, and we're also working with 8 governments around the world. GDST was originally set up to address illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing. It was agreed to start on a relatively narrow topic on the basis that it leads to some of these other issues here. But it was always planned to be modular in the basis that if you have a system that works for digital interoperable data exchange, it will allow module rules to be added for other things, which of course includes aquatic animal fish welfare. The traceability standard is built upon event-based traceability, which came out of the pharmaceutical industry in around 2010 and adopted by the FAO in 2012. And what it says is, instead of saying, this is what I want to know about the product you're supplying me, or one up, one down product traceability, it says at each event in the supply chain, whether that's harvesting, whether that's handling, whether it's pumping, whether it's shipping, whether it's cooking, what are the information I need to know? So the event is the critical tracking event, and the key data element is the what do we need to know. This is an example of the key data element matrices for IUU, and across the top of the events, the critical tracking events that we identify in the supply chain, we then identify who is responsible for collecting it, where that information should be collected, and how it should be formatted. And then we put some very specific things in for the different modules. The beauty of this is that everybody then in the supply chain knows their responsibility for collecting data, and then it's turned into a standard that can be shared between everybody. And the plan, of course, with the aquatic animal welfare dialogue that Christine's been leading with Aquatic Life Institute, is to create a matrices similar to this for aquatic animal welfare. So the dialogue process is open to anybody. It's a virtual process. It's led by Christine on behalf of the Aquatic Life Institute, and it's aspirational. It's to say, what is it that we really need to know? Because we don't want to limit the what. It's not about how you do it. It's not about the metrics that go with it. It's really what is the key data element. And the whole point of the process is that we then create a digital interoperable traceability standard. Now, interoperability is something I've mentioned a few times. You need 3 things. You need a standard format, a standard nomenclature, and you need a standard communications protocol. Without those 3 things, you can't achieve that. And the vision from a GDST point of view is that by 2030, all software and hardware that's launched into the global seafood industry is GDST capable, so that you get it as whether you want it or not. And the example of that is, we all came in here, we connected to the Wi-Fi. There's a global standard on how Wi-Fi routers and smartphones and mobile devices connect, and it's just integrated. And we want to institutionalize the GDST standard in the global seafood industry by 2030. So through the standard development process, we then have modules. The current core standard is very seafood and IUU centric. On the 1st of July next year, we launch a commodity agnostic standard, because the UN Global Compact and the UN Transparency Protocol are looking at other commodities, and they've said actually what GDST is doing can be scaled. So we're having a commodity agnostic core launched on the 1st of July. We'll then have a seafood expansion module. We've got marine ingredients. We've already got wild capture and aquaculture. We will also launch labour and human rights and aquatic animal welfare, and then we're going to stand up some of the dialogues from 2026 onwards. So I'll hand over to Christine. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. Thanks Huw for the overview of GDST, and now I'm going to dive a little bit more into the animal welfare dialogues that we've been having. So first of all, I work at Aquatic Life Institute. We're an NGO that's dedicated to improving aquatic animal welfare in both aquaculture and fisheries. We work closely with three main audiences: the corporate sector, policymakers, and certifiers. We joined GDST back in 2022, and in 2024, we introduced this idea of adding an extension framework to the core GDST standards for aquatic animal welfare. And the reason is that we're seeing growing regulatory changes, for example, the UK Sentience Bill, evolving certification standards, market momentum. Many retailers in this room have changed their animal welfare policies, and growing consumer awareness, especially in the EU, for aquatic animal welfare. So the goal for introducing this extension framework is to identify the most relevant and globally applicable KDEs for animal welfare that can be transmitted along the entire seafood supply chain. Here you can see some of the stakeholders. Many of them are in this room. We've got a broad group of scientists, NGOs, industry, and certifiers. So with these stakeholders, we started convening from early this year and actually broke them down into two subgroups, one dedicated to aquaculture and one for fisheries. We've had 5 meetings each, and the key messages that we've been conveying to these stakeholders is that we're not dictating how the data should look like, but rather we're co-designing what data we want to collect and in what format. Also, this is the first version. It's an iterative process depending on more legislation changes in the future. So in this first version, we're really just focused on the most relevant, important KDEs right now. So let's get to the fun part of results to date. So you're all aware of this diagram by now of all of the different stages of the fishing process and the animal welfare risks that exist in each stage. And that's how we came up with the initial KDEs, by looking at risks in capture, retrieval, onboard handling, and stunning and slaughter. So with the group of stakeholders, we decided to capture catch duration in minutes, and you can see some additional information here. We decided to capture catch volume in terms of tons per set rather than per trip. And the stakeholders decided to add an additional KDE that was not introduced initially, which is capture depth in terms of meters. They believe that this could provide valuable data and a way for users to differentiate themselves from others by reporting this data. We also decided to have a KDE on landing status, which gets to the core question of what happens to the animals after they've been retrieved. So are they landed alive or are they slaughtered at sea? If they are landed alive, then the users will go into the live transport KDE of having a menu of pre-populated live transport methods for fishing vessels. If they're slaughtered at sea, then the users can go into the following 2 KDEs, which is how are they stunned and how are they slaughtered. Okay, we're close to finalizing this first iteration, but we're still trying to finalize a couple more pending KDEs, so I encourage you to reach out and join the process. It's not too late. So one of the ones that we still have to finalize is the animal welfare policy. Another one is an optional KDE that some suggested that we discuss, which is on bycatch welfare. And then in terms of capture retrieval method, when we initially presented it, there wasn't any strong opinion on whether we should include this or not in this first iteration, but mainly because there aren't many alternative retrieval methods available. So what are the next steps? Well, between now and the end of this year, we'll have 1 to 2 more calls to finalize the remaining KDEs for both aquaculture and fisheries. And in early 2026, the Technical Council at the GDST will review all of this information, come back to me with any questions, then I will reconvene the stakeholder group. By mid-2026, the GDST partners will come to a vote. If they vote yes, fingers crossed, then the supervisory board then will come to a vote. So hopefully it'll be approved sometime next year, and then industry partners in GDST can voluntarily apply this extension framework. So just to conclude, we're trying to ensure that welfare data can flow with other product data and enable transparency, compliance, and continuous improvement. Thank you.